I was 23 years old when I found the cabin. And inside that cabin, I found something that changed my life forever. Hundreds of letters, all of them addressed to me, written by someone I never knew existed. My name is Emma Rose Carter, and this is the story of how I discovered the truth about who I really am. I grew up in foster care, 16 different homes by the time I turned 18. Nobody ever told me about my real parents. The only thing I had was my name on a worn birth certificate and a single word written on the back: Pine Haven. For 5 years, I saved every dollar from my waitressing job. I wanted to find Pine Haven. I wanted answers. When I finally had enough money, I bought an old used car and drove north into the mountains. Pine Haven wasn't on any map. I asked people in small towns along the way. Most shook their heads. But one old man at a gas station squinted at me and said, "Pine Haven? That's just an old logging area. Been abandoned for 30 years. Nothing up there but rotting cabins and ghosts." I drove anyway. The road turned from pavement to gravel, then from gravel to dirt. My car bounced over rocks and fallen branches. The trees grew thicker, the sunlight faded. And then, just as I thought I'd gone too far, I saw it. A wooden cabin. Old, but still standing. Smoke was rising from the chimney. My heart stopped. Someone was inside. I parked my car and walked slowly toward the door. My hands were shaking. I knocked 3 times. No answer. I knocked again. "Hello, is anyone home?" Silence. I turned the handle. The door creaked open. The inside of the cabin smelled like pine wood and old paper. A fire crackled in the stone fireplace. A rocking chair sat by the window, still moving slightly, as if someone had just gotten up. And then I saw them. Letters. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They covered every surface, stacked on the table, piled on shelves, bundled with string and ribbon. Some were yellowed with age, others looked newer. I picked one up with trembling hands. The envelope read, "To Emma Rose Carter, age 1. My breath caught in my throat. I grabbed another. "To Emma Rose Carter, age 5. Another. "To Emma Rose Carter, age 10. Another. "To Emma Rose Carter, age 18. My legs went weak. I sat down hard on the wooden floor, letters falling around me like snow. Someone had been writing to me my entire life. I tore open the first letter with shaking fingers. "My dearest Emma, today is your first birthday. I wish I could be there to see you blow out your candle. I wish I could hold you and tell you how much I love you. But I can't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Your grandmother made you a cake. Chocolate. Because even though you're too young to eat it, chocolate is your mother's favorite. And I think it will be yours too. I pray every night that you're safe, that you're loved, that whoever is taking care of you is kind. One day, I hope you'll find these letters. One day, I hope you'll understand why I had to give you up. All my love, your father." The letter fell from my hands. My father. I had a father, and he had been writing to me for 23 years. I didn't move from that spot for hours. I read letter after letter, my tears staining the old paper. "Age 2. I wonder if you're talking yet. Your mother used to say her first word was moon. I hope yours is something beautiful too. "Age 4. Do you have friends? Do you laugh a lot? I imagine you with pigtails and scraped knees from running too fast. "Age 7. You're in school now. I wonder what your favorite subject is. Your mother loved history. I loved math. Maybe you're a mix of both of us." Each letter was like a window into a life I never lived. A life where I had parents who thought about me, who loved me, who missed me. But none of the letters explained why. Why did he give me up? Where was my mother? Why did he write these letters but never come to find me? I looked around the cabin more carefully. There was a small kitchen in the corner, a narrow bed against the wall, a desk covered in pens and paper, and on the wall above the desk there were photographs. I stood up slowly and walked over. The first photo showed a young man with kind eyes and dark hair. He was smiling, his arm around a beautiful woman with long brown hair and the same green eyes I saw in the mirror every morning. My parents. The next photo showed the same couple, older now. The woman was pregnant, her hand resting on her belly. They looked so happy. The third photo made my heart crack. It was a baby, me, wrapped in a yellow blanket. The woman, my mother, was holding me in a hospital bed. She looked tired but glowing with love. The man stood beside her, looking down at me like I was the most precious thing in the world. What happened? I kept looking through the photos, but after that hospital picture, there were no more of my mother. Only photos of the man, getting older, always alone, always sad. And then I saw it. Tucked behind the photographs was a folded piece of newspaper, old and yellowed. I carefully pulled it free and unfolded it. The headline hit me like a punch to the stomach. Local woman dies in car accident. Newborn daughter survives. The date was 23 years ago, 3 days after I was born. The article was short. Margaret Rose Carter, 26, died yesterday when her vehicle slid off Highway 12 during a snowstorm. Her newborn daughter, Emma Rose Carter, was found unharmed in her car seat. The child has been placed in state custody. Margaret's husband, David Carter, was not present at the time of the accident. My mother died when I was 3 days old. I pressed the newspaper to my chest and sobbed. All this time I thought I was abandoned. I thought nobody wanted me. But my mother had died trying to bring me somewhere. And my father? Where was my father? Why wasn't he with us? Why did I end up in foster care if he was still alive? I needed more answers. I wiped my eyes and started searching the cabin more carefully. I opened drawers, looked under the bed, checked the shelves. And then, in a wooden box under the desk, I found a journal. The first page read, "This is the journal of David Carter. If my daughter Emma ever finds this, I want her to know the truth." I sat by the fireplace and began to read my father's journal. His handwriting was shaky in some places, strong in others. The entries jumped through years. Year 1. Emma is gone. The state took her. They said I'm unfit to be a father. They said I have no stable home, no job, no way to care for a baby. They said it's temporary, just until I get on my feet. But I know the truth. They think I'm dangerous. They think I'm responsible for Margaret's death. My hands froze. Responsible? I kept reading. The police questioned me for hours. They wanted to know why Margaret was driving alone in a snowstorm with a newborn, why I wasn't with her, why we lived so far from town. I told them the truth. Margaret was leaving me. Not because I hurt her, never. I loved her more than life itself. She was leaving because she was scared. Scared of my family. Scared of the danger they brought into our lives. My family isn't normal, Emma. I wish I could tell you we're just regular people, but that would be a lie. My father was involved in things, dangerous things, criminal things. By the time I was old enough to understand, it was too late to escape. When I met your mother, I tried to leave that life behind. We moved here to Pine Haven, where nobody could find us. We were happy. We were safe. But 3 days after you were born, men came looking for me. My father's old partners. They said I owed them money. They said they'd take you and Margaret if I didn't pay. Margaret panicked. She grabbed you and ran. She was trying to get to her sister's house 2 towns over. She was going to hide there until I could fix things. But the storm was too strong. The roads were too icy, and she never made it. I couldn't breathe. My mother died running from criminals, running to protect me. Year 3. I've tried everything to get you back, Emma. I cleaned up my life, got a job at the lumber mill, rented a small apartment. But every time I petition the court, they deny me. They say my background is too dangerous. They say you're better off without me. Maybe they're right. So I made a decision. I'll stay away. I'll let you grow up safe, far from my family's mess. But I won't disappear completely. I'll write to you, every birthday, every milestone. I'll tell you about your mother, about how much we loved you, so that one day, if you ever find these letters, you'll know you were never unwanted. You were loved, Emma. So, so loved. Year 10. I saw you today. I know I shouldn't have, but I couldn't help myself. I drove to the town where your foster family lives. I watched you play in the park. You were laughing, chasing other kids, your hair flying behind you. You looked so much like Margaret. I wanted to run to you, to tell you who I was, but I didn't. Because what if my past followed me? What if those men found out I had a daughter? I can't risk your safety. So I left, and I cried the whole drive home. Year 18. You're an adult now, Emma. Legally, you're free. No more foster homes, no more state control. I've left instructions in this cabin for you to find. I've written your name on everything. I've left breadcrumbs, your birth certificate, the word Pine Haven, hoping that someday curiosity would bring you here. If you're reading this, it means you found me. Or at least, you found the truth. I'm sorry I couldn't be the father you deserved. I'm sorry you grew up alone. But please know that every single day I thought about you. I loved you. I prayed for you. And I never, ever forgot you. The last entry was dated 3 months ago. I'm dying, Emma. Cancer. The doctors say I have weeks, maybe days. I've spent my whole life writing letters I could never send, building a place full of love you could never feel. But maybe, just maybe, you'll find this cabin. You'll read these words, and you'll know that you mattered. You always mattered. My tears blurred the words. He was dying, or maybe already dead. I sat in that cabin until the fire burned low. The sun had set hours ago. Darkness pressed against the windows. I should have been exhausted, but my mind wouldn't stop racing. My father had loved me. My mother had died protecting me. I wasn't abandoned. I was saved. But where was my father now? The journal said he was dying 3 months ago. Was he still alive? Was he somewhere in this forest, sick and alone? I stood up and looked around the cabin again. Everything felt frozen in time, like a museum. But the fire had been burning when I arrived. Someone had lit that fire. I walked to the front door and opened it. Cold night air rushed in. I stepped outside and looked around. The forest was dark and quiet. My car sat where I'd left it. Nothing moved. But then I saw it. Far through the trees, maybe a quarter-mile away, there was a tiny orange glow. Another cabin, with smoke rising from its chimney. My heart started pounding. Someone else was here. I grabbed a flashlight from my car and started walking. The beam of light cut through the darkness. Branches crunched under my feet. Somewhere in the distance, an owl hooted. The second cabin came into view. It was smaller than the first, more worn down, but light flickered in the windows. I walked up to the door and knocked. "Hello?" A long silence. Then from inside a weak voice. "Emma?" I froze. Someone inside knew my name. "Emma, is that you?" My hand trembled as I reached for the door handle. I pushed it open. Inside, lying in a small bed, was an old man. Thin and pale, his hair white, his eyes sunken. But when he looked at me, those eyes were the same ones from the photographs. My father. "Dad?" The word came out as a whisper. His face crumpled. Tears spilled down his cheeks. "You found me. You actually found me." I ran to his side and dropped to my knees. I'm here. He reached out with a shaking hand and touched my face. "You're real. You're really here." "Why didn't you tell me?" I sobbed. "Why didn't you come find me?" "I couldn't," he whispered. "I couldn't risk them finding you. My father's people, they're still out there. If they knew I had a daughter—" "I don't care about them," I said. "I care about you." He smiled through his tears. "You have your mother's heart." We sat together in the dim light. He told me stories about my mother, how they met, how she loved to dance in the rain, how she sang to me every night before I was born. He told me about the letters, how writing them kept him sane, how imagining my life gave him hope. I always thought you'd hate me, he said, for not being there. I squeezed his hand. I could never hate you. You did everything you could. He closed his eyes. I just wanted to see you one more time. Hata. Over the next few days, I stayed in the second cabin with my father. He was too weak to move much, but he could talk, and I wanted to hear everything. Tell me about your family, I said one morning as I made him tea. The dangerous ones. The ones Mom was running from. He sighed heavily. My father, your grandfather, was a man named Robert Carter. He ran an illegal operation. Smuggling, extortion. Things I didn't fully understand as a kid. By the time I was a teenager, I was already being pulled into it. What did you do? Deliveries, mostly. I didn't ask questions. I just did what I was told. But when I turned 20, I met your mother. Margaret was light, pure goodness. She worked at a library in town. I'd go there just to see her. He smiled at the memory. She made me want to be better. So I told my father I was done. I wanted out. What did he say? He laughed, said nobody leaves the family, but I didn't care. Margaret and I ran away. We found Pine Haven, got married in a little church. We thought we'd finally escaped. His expression darkened. But 3 days after you were born, 2 men showed up. They said my father had debts. He'd been arrested, and his partners wanted their money back. They said I owed them $50,000. I gasped. That's insane. I know. I told them I didn't have it, so they threatened to take you and Margaret. They said they'd sell you both if I didn't pay within a week. My blood ran cold. Margaret heard everything. She was terrified. She wanted to go to the police, but I begged her not to. These weren't men you could arrest. They had connections everywhere. So she said she'd take you to her sister's house, just for a few days, until I figured something out. His voice broke. I should have stopped her. The storm was coming. The roads were dangerous. But she was so scared, and I thought she'd be safer away from me. It wasn't your fault, I whispered. I've told myself that for 23 years, but it doesn't help. He looked at me with red, tired eyes. After she died, the police suspected me. They thought I'd hurt her, or that I'd been involved in the accident somehow. They investigated me for months, and during that time, the state took you. Did you try to fight it? Of course I did, but my lawyer said I didn't stand a chance. I had no job, no home, and a criminal family. The court decided you'd be better off in foster care. I felt anger rising in my chest. They should have let you prove yourself. Maybe, but honestly, Emma, I was relieved. I looked at him in surprise, because those men never stopped looking for me. For years, they'd show up in towns I passed through. I had to keep moving, keep hiding. If you'd been with me, they would have found you. You reached for my hand, so I let you go. I let the system take you somewhere, far away, somewhere my past couldn't reach, and I stayed here, in Pine Haven, writing letters to a daughter I'd never see again. I squeezed his hand. But I found you. You did, he said softly, and it's the greatest gift I've ever received. That night I made dinner for both of us. Canned soup heated over the fire. My father ate slowly, his hands shaking. You should go to a hospital, I said. He shook his head. No hospitals. No records. The moment my name shows up in a system, they'll know where I am. Who? Those men? Dad, that was over 20 years ago. Men like that don't forget, Emma. And debts don't disappear. I wanted to argue, but something in his voice made me stop. After dinner, I cleaned up while he rested. The cabin was quiet except for the crackling fire. Then I heard it. A car engine in the distance. My father's eyes snapped open. Emma, turn off the lights. What? Now. I quickly blew out the candles. The cabin went dark. Get under the bed, he whispered urgently. Dad, what's happening? Just do it, please. I crawled under the narrow bed, my heart hammering. Through the gaps in the floorboards, I could see my father sitting up, his face pale. The car engine grew louder, then it stopped. Doors opened. Footsteps crunched on leaves. A knock on the door, hard, demanding. David Carter, we know you're in there. My father didn't answer. The door burst open. 2 men stepped inside. They were both middle-aged, wearing dark jackets. One was tall and bald. The other was shorter with a thick beard. "Well, well," the bald one said. "After all these years, we finally found you." My father's voice was steady. "What do you want, Marcus?" "What do we want?" Marcus laughed. "The same thing we wanted 23 years ago. Our money." "I don't have it." "Yeah, we figured. But you know what? We're not interested in money anymore." The bearded man stepped forward. "We're interested in payback." "For what?" my father asked. "I didn't do anything to you." "You disappeared," Marcus said. "You made us look weak. Do you know how many years we spent looking for you? How much time we wasted? That's not my problem." Marcus pulled out a gun. I bit down on my hand to keep from screaming. "Here's what's going to happen," Marcus said calmly. "You're going to tell us where every penny of your father's money went, and then we're going to decide whether you live or die." My father stared at him. "Robert's money is gone. The police seized it when he was arrested." "Liar!" The bearded man stepped forward and grabbed my father by the collar. "We know he hid money. We know you know where it is." "I don't," my father said through gritted teeth. "And even if I did, I'd never tell you." Marcus cocked the gun. "Wrong answer. I couldn't just hide. I had to do something." I crawled out from under the bed as quietly as I could. My phone was in my jacket pocket. I pulled it out and dialed 911. No signal. Of course. We were in the middle of nowhere. I looked around frantically. There had to be something I could use. A weapon. Anything. My eyes landed on the iron fire poker leaning against the fireplace. I crept toward it, my hands shaking. "Last chance, David," Marcus said. "Where's the money?" "Go to hell." Marcus raised the gun to my father's head. "Stop!" I shouted, stepping into the light with the fire poker raised. Both men spun around. "Who the hell are you?" Marcus demanded. "I'm his daughter," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "And you need to leave, now." Marcus lowered the gun slightly, surprised. Then he smiled. "Well, isn't this interesting? David, you didn't tell us you had a daughter." "Leave her out of this," my father said desperately. "Oh, we can't do that." Marcus looked at the bearded man. "Grab her." The bearded man started toward me. I swung the fire poker. It connected with his arm. He yelled and stumbled back. "You little—" I swung again, this time hitting him in the knee. He crumpled. Marcus pointed the gun at me. "Drop it." I didn't drop it. "Emma, please," my father begged. "Just do what he says." "No," I said. "I've spent my whole life being powerless. I'm not doing it anymore." Marcus's finger tightened on the trigger, and then, from outside, red and blue lights flashed through the windows. "Police sirens," Marcus cursed. "How?" I smiled. I pressed the emergency SOS button on my phone before I came out. It alerts authorities even without signal. I hadn't actually done that, but he didn't know that. Actually, what had happened was even simpler. A park ranger had seen the unusual activity and called it in. Marcus and the bearded man ran for the door, but the police were already there. "Freeze! Hands up!" Both men were tackled to the ground and handcuffed. I dropped the fire poker and ran to my father. "Are you okay?" He nodded weakly. "You saved my life. You saved mine first," I said, tears streaming down my face. The police took statements from both of us. They arrested Marcus and the bearded man for armed assault, trespassing, and the list of other charges. One of the officers, a woman named Sergeant Paula Reyes, sat down with my father and me. "Mr. Carter, we've been looking for those two for a long time," she said. "They're connected to several unsolved crimes in the area. Your testimony could finally put them away for good." My father nodded slowly. "I'll tell you everything I know." "Good," she turned to me. "And you must be Emma." I blinked. "How did you know my name?" She smiled gently. "Your father's been sending letters to our station for years. Anonymously, of course. He'd report suspicious activity. People asking about him. Things like that. He never signed his name, but he always mentioned he was doing it to protect his daughter, Emma." I looked at my father in surprise. He gave me a weak smile. "I couldn't be in your life, but I could still try to keep you safe from a distance." My throat tightened. Sergeant Reyes continued. "We've also been investigating your mother's death, Mr. Carter. After tonight, and with your statement, we believe we can finally close that case properly. It's clear now that she was fleeing a dangerous situation. You won't be held responsible." My father's shoulders sagged with relief. "Thank you." "There's one more thing," the sergeant said. We found records showing that you petitioned for custody of Emma multiple times over the years. We also found evidence that those petitions were mishandled. Mishandled? I asked. One of the social workers involved in your case was later convicted of taking bribes. It's possible your father's petitions were deliberately buried. Anger flared in my chest. You mean I could have been with him this whole time? Possibly. We're looking into it. My father reached for my hand. Emma, it doesn't matter now. What matters is that you're here. You're safe. That's all I ever wanted. But it did matter to me. I'd spent 18 years in foster care. 18 years feeling unwanted. And all along, my father had been fighting for me. After the police left, I helped my father back to bed. He was exhausted, his face gray with pain. You need a hospital, I said firmly. Emma, no arguments. Those men are in jail. You're not hiding anymore. We're going to get you help. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay. The hospital was 2 hours away. I drove through the night, my father sleeping fitfully in the passenger seat. When we arrived, the doctors rushed him into the emergency room. I sat in the waiting area, numb and exhausted. A nurse brought me coffee. Are you his daughter? Yes. He's been asking for you. I followed her to a small room where my father lay in a hospital bed, hooked up to monitors and IVs. He looked so fragile. But when he saw me, he smiled. Hey, kiddo. I sat beside him and took his hand. Hey, Dad. The word felt strange on my tongue, but also right. The doctors say I need surgery, he said quietly. It's risky, but it might give me a few more years. Then you'll do it, I said firmly. Emma, I don't know if I want to. I stared at him. What? I'm tired, he admitted. I've been running and hiding for so long. Maybe it's time to rest. No! My voice shook. You don't get to give up. Not now. Not when I just found you. His eyes filled with tears. I don't want to be a burden to you. You're not a burden. You're my father, and I need you. He squeezed my hand. I've missed so much of your life. Then don't miss any more. He was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded. Okay, I'll do the surgery. Promise? I promise. The surgery was scheduled for the next morning. I stayed with him all night, holding his hand. We talked about everything. He told me stories about my mother, how she loved to bake cookies, how she once rescued a baby bird and kept it in a shoebox, how she cried during every sad movie. I told him about my life, the foster homes, the friends I'd made, the jobs I'd worked, the dreams I had. I want to be a teacher, I said. I want to help kids who feel lost the way I did. His face glowed with pride. You'll be amazing. I wish Mom could see me. She can, he said softly. I believe that. I rested my head on his shoulder. I'm scared, Dad. Of what? Of losing you. I just got you back. He kissed the top of my head. You'll never lose me, Emma. Even if I'm not here, I'll always be with you. In the letters, in the memories, in everything I left behind. That's not enough. I know, he whispered. But it's all I can promise. The next morning, they wheeled him into surgery. He looked at me one last time and said, I love you, Emma Rose Carter. I love you too, Dad. Then he was gone through the double doors. I sat in the waiting room for 6 hours. Finally, a doctor came out. Emma Carter? I stood up, my legs shaking. Yes? The doctor smiled. The surgery went well. He's stable. You can see him in a few hours. I collapsed into the chair, sobbing with relief. My father stayed in the hospital for 3 weeks. Slowly, he got stronger. Color returned to his face. He started eating again. The doctor said the surgery had removed most of the cancer. He'd need chemotherapy, but his chances were good. During those 3 weeks, I stayed in a motel nearby. Every day I visited him. We kept talking, filling in the gaps of 23 years. One afternoon he said, Emma, I need to tell you something. What? The cabin, the one with all the letters. It's yours. I blinked. What do you mean? I bought that land years ago. It's in your name. I left instructions with a lawyer. If anything happened to me, you'd inherit it. Dad, I don't need... It's not about need, he interrupted gently. It's about having a place that's yours, a place full of love, a place where you can go whenever you need to feel connected to your past. Tears filled my eyes. Thank you. There's also some money. Not much, but enough to help you get started. Pay for school. Build a life. Where did you get money? He smiled. I've been working odd jobs for years, saving every penny. It's all yours now. I didn't know what to say. He reached for my hand. I can't give you back the childhood I took from you, but I can give you a future. You didn't take anything from me, I said firmly. You gave me life. Twice. Once when I was born, and again when you stayed away to keep me safe. He cried then. Deep, shaking sobs. I'm so proud of you, Emma. Your mother would be too. When he was finally released from the hospital, I drove him back to Pine Haven, but not to the isolated cabin in the woods. I'd found him a small house in the nearest town, a place with neighbors, a porch, and a garden. Somewhere he didn't have to hide anymore. This is too much, he protested as I helped him inside. It's not enough, I said. You deserve to live, Dad. Really live, not just survive. Over the next few months, we built a life together. I enrolled in community college to study education. He started going to cancer support groups. We had dinner together every Sunday. And every few weeks, we'd drive up to the cabin in Pine Haven. We'd sit by the fire, and he'd read me the letters he'd written. We'd laugh and cry and remember. One day, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, he said, Emma, I need to ask you something. Anything. Do you forgive me? I looked at him in surprise. For what? For not being there. For all the years you spent alone. I took his hand. Dad, there's nothing to forgive. You did everything you could. You loved me the only way you knew how. And that's enough. He smiled through his tears. You're a better person than I ever was. I learned from the best, I said. A year later, I stood in front of my first classroom. 25 third graders stared up at me with wide, curious eyes. Good morning, class. My name is Miss Carter. They chorused back. Good morning, Miss Carter. As I began the lesson, I thought about my father. He was in remission now. Still weak, but alive. Fighting. We talked on the phone every day. And I thought about my mother, the woman I never got to meet, but who I knew loved me fiercely. After school, I drove to Pine Haven. My father was waiting on the porch, a blanket over his lap. How was your first day? He asked. Perfect, I said, sitting beside him. I told the kids a story about a girl who went looking for answers and found a family. He smiled. Sounds like a good story. It is, because it's true. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the forest. Dad? Yeah? I'm glad I found you. I'm glad you found me too, kiddo. That night, I went to the letter cabin one last time. I lit a fire and sat surrounded by all those years of love written on paper. And I wrote my own letter. Dear Mom and Dad, I'm 24 years old now. I'm a teacher. I have a home. I have a father who loves me. And I finally understand the truth. Love isn't about being perfect. It's not about always being there or never making mistakes. Love is about doing everything you can, even when the world makes it impossible. It's about sacrifice. It's about writing letters to someone you'll never send them to, just because you need them to exist somewhere. It's about driving through a snowstorm to protect your child. It's about staying away to keep them safe. Mom, you died protecting me. Dad, you lived protecting me. And now I finally understand that I was never abandoned. I was loved. Deeply, impossibly, completely loved. Some children grow up with parents who are there every day but never really see them. I grew up with parents who couldn't be there, but who saw me every single moment. I found a cabin full of letters, but what I really found was proof that love doesn't need to be present to be real. It doesn't need to be spoken to be heard, and it doesn't need to be perfect to be enough. Thank you for giving me life. Thank you for giving me up so I could live. Thank you for every sacrifice, every tear, every year of waiting. I forgive you for everything you think you did wrong, because from where I'm standing now, all I can see is what you did right. You loved me, and that changed everything. All my love. Emma Rose Carter. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in an envelope. Then I walked to the fireplace where my parents' wedding photo hung on the wall. I tucked the letter behind the frame. I found you, I whispered. Both of you. And I'm never letting go. 5 years later, I stood in the same classroom, but now I was married. My last name had changed, but I kept Carter as my middle name, always. My father sat in the back of the room during family day, watching me teach. He was thinner now, his hair completely white, but he was alive, still fighting, still here. After class, a little girl approached me. She had messy pigtails and sad eyes. Miss Carter? Yes, sweetie? My mom is in the hospital. I'm living with a foster family. They're nice, but I miss her. My heart broke for her. I knelt down to her level. What's your name? Sophie. Sophie, I want to tell you something very important. Are you listening? She nodded. Sometimes, the people who love us most can't always be with us. Maybe they're sick. Maybe they're far away. Maybe they've gone to heaven. But that doesn't mean they stopped loving you. How do you know? She whispered. Because the same thing happened to me. My mom died when I was a baby. My dad couldn't take care of me. I grew up in foster care, just like you. Her eyes widened. Really? Really. And for a long time, I thought nobody wanted me. But then, when I was 23, I found out the truth. My parents loved me so much that they made the hardest choices in the world to keep me safe. Did you find them? I found my dad. And even though my mom is gone, I found her too. In letters, in stories, in the way my dad talks about her. Sophie's lip trembled. Do you think my mom still loves me? I know she does. And one day, when you're bigger, you'll understand that love doesn't disappear just because someone isn't there. It stays. In your heart, in your memories, in the way you become the person they hoped you'd be. A tear rolled down Sophie's cheek. I miss her. I know, sweetheart. That's okay. You're allowed to miss her. But don't ever think you're alone. I pulled her into a hug. My father watched from across the room, tears in his eyes. After Sophie left, he walked over to me. You're going to change that little girl's life, he said. Someone changed mine, I replied, taking his hand. I'm just passing it forward. We walked out of the school together, father and daughter, finally living the life we'd both dreamed of for 23 years. That night, I returned to the cabin in Pine Haven one more time. I sat by the fire and thought about everything that had happened. I thought about the letters, about the love that had waited in that cabin for me to find it. And I realized something important. Life is full of people who look at situations from the outside and judge. They see a father who abandoned his child. They see a system that saved her. They see a tragic story with no happy ending. But they're wrong, because they don't see the whole picture. They don't see the man who spent 23 years writing letters to a daughter he'd never met, pouring his heart onto paper, just so she'd know she was loved. They don't see the mother who died, trying to protect her 3-day-old baby from dangerous men. They don't see the girl who refused to give up searching for the truth, even when everyone told her to let go. They don't see that sometimes, the people who seem absent are the ones who love us most. They don't see that sometimes, letting go is the greatest act of love. They don't see that sometimes, the hardest thing in the world is staying away from someone you love, because staying close would put them in danger. I learned something that day in the cabin, surrounded by thousands of letters. Never judge a person's love by their presence. Judge it by their sacrifice. My father sacrificed everything: his right to be a parent, his chance to watch me grow up, his own happiness, just to keep me safe. My mother sacrificed her life trying to protect me, and I almost spent my whole life thinking I was unwanted. But I wasn't unwanted. I was loved so much that two people gave up everything for me. So if you're listening to this, if you're someone who grew up feeling abandoned or forgotten or alone, I want you to know something. You don't know the whole story. Maybe your parent gave you up because they couldn't provide for you. Maybe they stayed away because they were protecting you from something. Maybe they made mistakes because they were scared or young or broken. Maybe they died before they could tell you how much you meant to them. But that doesn't mean you weren't loved. Sometimes love looks like presence. Sometimes it looks like absence. Sometimes love is a parent at every soccer game. Sometimes it's a parent who stays away so you can have a better life. Both are real. Both are valid. Both are sacrifice. I found a cabin full of letters, but what I really found was the truth. Love doesn't always look the way we expect it to, but that doesn't make it any less real. My name is Emma Rose Carter. I'm 29 years old. I'm a teacher, a daughter, and someone who spent most of her life thinking she was alone. But I wasn't alone. I never was. And neither are you. Sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about people who stay together forever. Sometimes they're about people who love so deeply that they're willing to stay apart. My father wrote me letters for 23 years, knowing I might never read them. My mother drove into a storm to save me from danger. And both of them loved me more than their own lives. That's the kind of love that changes everything. That's the kind of love that never dies. And that's the kind of love I hope you find too. Whether it's waiting for you in a cabin in the woods, or hidden in the memories you've forgotten, or living in the heart of someone who's been searching for you all along. Because love is always there. Sometimes you just have to look a little harder to find it. And when you do, when you finally discover the truth about how much you are loved, everything changes. Everything makes sense. And you realize that you were never abandoned at all. You were always, always loved. Thank you for listening to Emma's story. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, your story isn't over yet. The truth is still out there, waiting for you to find it. Stay strong, keep searching, and never forget, you are loved, even when you can't see it. Sometimes the people who love us most are the ones we haven't met yet. Sometimes they're the ones who had to leave. And sometimes they're the ones who've been there all along, just waiting for us to notice. Don't give up on finding your truth. Don't give up on finding your people. And most importantly, don't give up on believing that you matter, because you do. You always have, and you always will. See you in the next story. Until then, remember, love never abandons us. Sometimes it just hides in place. Until then, remember, love never abandons us. Sometimes it just hides in places we haven't looked yet.